There's a truth that I'd like to briefly explore with you this morning, and that truth is this. What you bring to an experience has a direct impact on what you take away from that experience. Let me say that again. What you bring to an experience has a direct impact on what you will take away from that experience. Take worship, for example. Two people can sit side by side in a worship service. One person is moved spiritually in the worship service, senses God's presence in the worship service. The other person is bored out of their gourd. Now, why is that? I mean, either God is present in worship or God is not present in worship. So why did one person experience God while the other person was totally bored? Faith could be part of it, but part of it goes back to the truth that we just talked about. What you bring to an experience has an impact on what you take away from that experience. Let's look at it this way. If you come to worship and all you're thinking about is the time and what you have to do after worship, chances are you're not going to be moved by that worship experience. Or if you come to worship and all you got on your mind is the huge Packer game that's going to take place later on this afternoon, or all you're thinking about is the to-do list, the things that you still have to buy for Christmas, or all you're thinking about is what you have to do first thing in the office on Monday morning, chances are you're not going to be moved during worship. But if you come to worship and your heart is open, your mind is ready, you're receptive to God's Spirit, you're listening for God, you're open for God, chances are you will be moved at some point in that worship experience. See, a lot of what we get out of worship is what we bring to the experience. Take the shepherds in the field that night. You know, most of us think that there were probably maybe 2 or 3 shepherds. But many scholars believe that there were a lot of shepherds in the field that night. Not just 2 or 3. Why a lot of shepherds in the field that night? Well, the sheep that they were watching over were the temple sheep. We know that the temple sheep were grazed outside of Bethlehem. The temple sheep were grade A sheep. They were cows that be registered. Okay? They were the top of the line. They had to be. They had to be without blemish. And so these sheep were extremely valuable. Now, you're not going to put a flock of 400 or 500 sheep that are valued like that into the hands of 1 or 2 shepherds. There's going to be a lot of shepherds out there. And so I think there were a lot of shepherds in the field that night, but it's logical to assume that maybe just some of them experienced the angel and heard the angelic chorus. Now, why not all of them? Well, again, it goes back to that principle. What you bring to the experience has an impact on what you take away from the experience. Probably the shepherds who saw the angel, heard the angelic chorus, were those who had somehow prepared themselves for that experience. They were maybe those shepherds who were open to God's presence, were looking for God, were wondering about God. Well, perhaps other shepherds had their minds on other things, like what they were going to do when they got done with their duty out in the field that night, where they were going to go, what card game they were going to play, or what animal they were going to hunt next. So the first lesson that I think we can learn from our shepherds is this. If you want to have a religious experience somewhere in the midst of Christmas, a lot depends on what you're going to bring to the Christmas season. A lot depends on if you're preparing yourself spiritually for Christmas. running around like a chicken with your head cut off during the days before Christmas is probably not going to prepare you spiritually for Christmas. Partying, which I'm sure none of you do here today, heavily during the days before Christmas is not going to prepare you spiritually for Christmas. Working extra hours on the job so you can pay down your maxed out credit card is commendable, but it probably is not going to prepare you for a spiritual Christmas. So the lesson that we can learn from those shepherds who experienced God is that we need to focus on God for the Christmas season. A while ago I was driving in the city here and I realized that I was following one of our church members. And so I decided I'd change lanes and I'd pull alongside him and wait. And that's exactly what I did. I pulled alongside him and wait. The person never saw me. I waved again. The person never saw me. I was going to honk, but then I thought, well, the person in front of me might think I'm honking at them and flip me the bird or something. I don't want that. So I rolled down the window and I kind of yelled the person's name. The person just kept driving away. So I yelled again. Our cars drove side by side, block after block after block. This person never saw me. They were so focused on driving that they didn't see. Did you catch that? They were so focused on driving that they didn't see. If we're so focused on to-do lists, where we have to go, where we have to be, what we have to buy, who we have to please, chances are we're not going to see God this Christmas. So who will you be? Will you be that person so focused on going, doing, being, that you forget to see God? God is present in life. I believe that. Can I have an amen on that? God is out there in the fields at night. God is in the factory setting. God is in the office setting. God is present in the days of Advent. Can be experienced in these days of Advent, but a lot depends on what we focus on. If we'll see God or not. First lesson then from the shepherds, focus on God. You've got a great chance of seeing God in the midst of Christmas. There's another lesson that we can get from these shepherds, and that is, again, there's no way of proving this, but again, I believe that those shepherds who saw the angel, heard the angelic chorus, were those shepherds who were listening. Listening. When you're a shepherd out there in the field at night, there's not an awful lot to do besides talk or listen. I think the shepherds who experienced the angelic chorus were those who were not talking, but were listening. So we can learn from these shepherds. Maybe another way that we go about preparing ourselves to experience God in Christmas is to make time to do nothing but just listen. A drill sergeant ordered one of his privates to debrief the rest of the platoon after a real grueling training exercise. Half hour later, the private was in the drill sergeant's office with a duffel bag of underwear. He'd been ordered to debrief the soldiers. And he came with a bag of underwear. He heard, but he wasn't listening. Wasn't listening. And that's the way we are sometimes. We hear, but we don't really listen. Parents, siblings, employees, many times we hear, but we don't really listen to what those words really mean. We need to make time to listen. That's what the shepherds do. those who experience the angelic chorus. Eric Butterwood has written a book called The Universe is Called. I'm going to offer that as a book study in the near future. So some of you can immediately start thinking about that. The Universe is Called is the name of the book. It's a book about prayer. And Eric devotes one whole chapter of his book on prayer to do nothing but sit in silence and listen. Eric says that if you really want to experience God, you need to get away, sit in silence, and just do nothing but listen. Now, I know some of you are immediately thinking, I can't do that. I cannot do that. I mean, I gotta have the radio on. I gotta be fiddling with my iPad, or I gotta be on the internet. I just can't sit and do nothing and listen. Well, you might think you can't, but you can if you want. It's going to be awkward, certainly, if you're used to always having music or the TV on or the radio playing. It's going to be awkward to do nothing but just listen in silence. But can't do it. Butterwood says that if you really want to hear God in that gentle whisper, you need to. Because otherwise, if there's so much noise going on, you're not going to hear God's gentle whisper. So you sit in silence and wait. And if you do, in time, probably not going to happen immediately, but in time, you'll be amazed at what pops into your head. You'll be amazed at suddenly what you feel nudged to do. That's God, Spirit. Now whisper. The shepherds who experienced the angelic chorus sat in silence, and lo and behold, they heard an angelic song. We learn to sit in silence, especially during Christmas. We might be amazed at what we might hear. Christmas, a few days away. We're reminded about that when we burn candles. Christmas can be, and these days leading up to it, can be a time of complete frantic chaos. Or it can be a time of spiritual renewal, spiritual experience with God. You decide what your experience is going to be by what you bring to that experience. So follow the lead of the shepherds. Bring to the experience an open heart, a desire to somehow feel God. Bring to the experience some silent listening. If you do that, like the shepherds, this Christmas could be special rather than a time of frantic chaos. Let's bow for prayer.